Today, I'm going to answer the question, what happened to Black people when it comes to having a sense of pride, man? Because see, back in the day, Black folks were prideful. We were proud of our families. We were proud of our God. We were proud of our educations. We were proud of our community, how we behaved, how respected we were. No matter what, people, they could call us the N-word. They could say whatever they wanted to say. But you know what? Black folks had people's respect. I talk about this quite often. The most trusted people on the planet back in the day, your grandmother, your grandfather, your great-grandmother, your great-grandfather, people doted on them. White women told Black women their dirtiest, darkest secrets. White men trusted Black men over anybody, over their best friends. They knew that old Moses over there, he could be trusted. And we let that go. And now we squander it in this so-called social justice movement that, quite frankly, is a crack up. And I'm going to prove it to you. So let me just throw some statistics at you. First, let me ask you a couple questions. Who dominates sports in America? The typical sports: football, basketball, track and field, not necessarily hockey, but baseball. And don't get funny with me and talk about curling or something like that, or badminton, because I know you try to play some games, but who dominates them? You know who dominates, right? Football, 68% Black. Basketball, probably higher. I don't even know the number. Well over 50% Black. We're 13% of the population. How do we dominate? Sports, a meritocracy, something you have to be the best at. No affirmative action, no cutting of corners, no rounding the grades or anything. No, if you're going to make it on a team, you got to deserve it, right? And we dominate. How do we do that? Are we getting the help of a white man? I mean, what's going on? And here's what's funny about it. It isn't privileged Blacks that are dominating sports. Denzel Washington's son was on I forget what they call it, but the team that gets the real team ready for the Rams. That's the first time I ever saw and met Denzel Washington. Not that he's going to remember it, Denzel. I mean, we did hang out a little bit. But anyway, his son was there. He had all the advantages. Denzel could have gotten this kid running coaches, hitting coaches, agility coaches, strength coaches, nutrition coaches, probably did. And his son didn't make it to the bigs. He was on the practice squad. Thank you for letting me remember that. What happened? All the privilege in the world. There's rare occurrences where a father-son duo will make it, like a Ken Griffey Jr. or Barry Bonds, even though Barry was juicing with that bang. Now, bang, a friend of mine owns Bang, so I always give him a shout out. So here's the thing. Even with privilege, it's not that. It's getting Blacks the advantages. Let's look at boxing. There's some very, very gifted boxers and making lots of money. Other than the Mayweathers, where the father and the uncle fought hard and lost all their money because you couldn't take the ghetto out of them. But little Floyd grew up around it, and he's making a lot of money. But it's rare. It's rare that you're going to see some kid of privilege go out and do something great, because that's the problem. Privilege makes you soften a little bit. So you've got these Black athletes dominating sports, and it isn't because of their daddies. You got a few exceptions. Curry, his father, was a professional player, and he's got 2 boys in the NBA. But there aren't that many that have that. They fight it out. They scrap. They put it all together. They have to get in the gym, and they shoot more free throws than anybody else. They do more crossover dribbling. They work hard. So here's my question for the people that say, well, here's social justice, Kevin. We got to do some social justice. And they're always dumbing stuff down for Blacks. Well, if you haven't dumbed anything down for Blacks in basketball, in football, in track and field, in boxing, in other places, how are we successful? So the answer is these kids are working really hard. And there's a lot of white kids out there. There's a lot of Hispanic kids. There's a lot of Asian kids. We're all fighting out there for the same little piece of the pie. A limited number of slots, 350 of them in the NBA, X number of them in the NFL, X number of them in baseball, X number of people that can make the Olympic team in track and field, and we dominate based on percentages. Black folks do. Now, have you thought about this? Have you thought about what happens if we shift our domination from sports to academics? What if we shift our domination from sports to media, to running business or whatever? What would happen? What if we stopped belly aching? What if black folks said, you know what? We're not going to make any more excuses. There was a Black Wall Street, one of the first black, I think the first black female millionaire. Well, I know the first black female millionaire was Madam C.J. Walker, but one of the first female millionaires was Madam C.J. Walker. So we know how to build businesses. We know how we're doctors, we're lawyers, we're all kinds of stuff. I could go on about the achievements of blacks in America. So we dominate sports. You want to know why? Because we see it as a way out. Little kids, we dominate entertainment. We dominate it. Per capita, blacks dominate entertainment. I'm not talking about Hollywood. I'm talking about singers and rappers and dancers and whatever else. Our culture dominates in more ways than you can shake a stick at. So if we took that energy and we just decided, you know what, instead of dominating and being the next Beyonce, how about I'll become the next Madame Curie, the next best physicist, the next best mathematician, the next best, scientist of some sort, physicist, who you name it, economist. What if we put that kind of effort? What could we be? I believe, in my heart of hearts, there's a group of people out there who understand that. They see how dominant blacks become when the back is against the wall, when they go, man, I got no way out, man. I got no way out. So I either better be great at fighting, great at running, great at football, catching the ball, great at bouncing a ball and dunking it, great at singing and dancing or whatever, and we do it. We don't even hesitate. We just do it. Now, we also do it in some bad stuff. We deal drugs. We learn how to cheat the system. We do a lot of other things. But I'm just saying, if anybody stops for 1 second and you ask yourself how blacks have become so dominant in certain areas of society when it's open to everybody. I know Jimmy the Greek talked about the big black buck being bred with the big butt woman as a slave, and they created the big black child that could outperform everybody, but that's just not a fact. Black folks, I know white folks that are amazing athletes. They're fast runners. They're good fighters. I have fought some of the toughest guys I have ever been in a ring with are white boys. And, you know, and we've got enough examples. You show me your black heavyweight champion, I'll show you a white heavyweight champion. So there are plenty of examples of all of this. It's not a one race can dominate in a particular area. Russians are amazing fighters, amazing special forces guys. I've trained with them. So it isn't like there's a monopoly for anybody on anything. It's what people choose to do. And what black folks choose to do, they dominate. It's an indomitable spirit that I believe is part of your DNA. It's part of that history of race, that history of slavery. It's part of that history of lack of civil rights, and what becomes a part of your DNA that says, I will overcome no matter what. And that's what people want to stamp out. That's why you have such a call for social justice. We got to have social justice, social justice. What is social justice? Social justice for what? So black folks can get their scores lowered. They can have lower test scores to get into colleges than any other race. Why would you do that? Because you don't want to challenge the guy who says, oh, you don't think I can do it? I'll do it. See, I was one of those kids. If you challenge me, done. I was going to defeat you. I would figure it out. There was nothing inside of me that was quit. If you fought, I came back, I fought you every day till I beat you. Then I fought you till I could beat you consistently, or until you said, please don't come back. I don't want to fight no more. And that spirit still exists within me. And it exists within any Black that is not bought into this nonsense of social justice. We get what we get. In this day and time, overwhelmingly, you get what you get. It isn't some 1940s racist cop that's just pulling Black people over willy-nilly and deciding he's going to shoot Black folks. That's just a lie. In this day and time, if you're pulled over by the police, he's not harassing you. And as I said about these social justice warriors in the NBA and the NFL and everywhere else, these guys pull you over, you're in a nice car, they probably recognize you, they want a selfie or your autograph. These people don't even know people that have been killed by a cop for the wrong reason. They hear about these stories anecdotally. Hey, YouTube, do not ban me. I'm telling you the truth. They don't know these people. They hear about the guy that got shot in Atlanta, and they want to just raise holy heck because they've never done anything with their lives except their sport, which they dominated. They dominated. They came out of environments where they know that everybody's out there doing some dirty. Cops don't just roll up on Black folks for shiggles. They have a reason. And in the case of Atlanta, for example, they talk to this guy for an hour. They try to talk him off the ledge. He's drunk. He tries to steal their taser. He gets shot. And suddenly, everybody's got to be up in arms. It's ridiculous. And you know what? It's time for us to end this nonsense, because it's a very simple thing to ask Black America. How do we dominate sports? How do we dominate entertainment? Because we start early. We apply ourselves. We put all our energies into it. And we don't do anything to distract ourselves until we've made it. And then once we've made it, you know what these leftist Blacks do? They then complain. Oh, look at the poor Blacks that got left behind. Looky. Those poor Blacks that got left behind are people that are going to take regular jobs. They know the deal. They're not being harassed. They don't need our help and support. Should we collectively as human beings want to do what's best for us as a culture? You're doggone right we should. And if a cop kills somebody wrongly in any community, and particularly the Black community, I'll be the first one out there marching and raising holy HE double crooked socks. But this idea that we got to stand up for people that are doing wrong because it's part of the collective, and you know, what are we going to do as a society? How will we survive? And cops are killing us all, and white folks with guns want to kill us and all that is just absolute nonsense. It's abject nonsense. It's an excuse for people not to do well in life. And I take you back to my original principle, my original thought, which is if you want somebody that can apply themselves, we have plenty of examples that show you when Black folks want to do something, they do it in overwhelming numbers. When they want to be the best at something, they do it in overwhelming numbers. Even if it's one, even if it's Tiger Woods that says, you know what, I think I can play that white man's game and I can play it better than he can because I'll start early, I'll apply myself, and I'll become something. And people, well, Tiger Woods, he didn't claim to be Black. Well, his daddy's Black. And you know what took him to those practices? His dad. You know who was at every game? His dad. Hey, Black people, I just gave you a hint. If you want to do something well, you want to be good in life, it begins with your daddy. So stop making excuses. We dominate sports disproportionately. How in the world do we have 68% of the people in the NFL that play that sport, multimillionaires who didn't come from the best backgrounds, and they look like this? How did we get to that? I can tell you how we got to that. We got to that because somebody in the community, a daddy, an uncle, a cousin, maybe a mom said, you're going to apply yourself. And they made that kid, they found out that that kid had a passion, and they said, you know what? You stick with this, you'll become somebody. They looked at him and said, you're an athlete. You can do this. And they stuck with it. And overwhelmingly, disproportionately, we dominate. And when I say dominate, I'm talking about, look at the number of people that play basketball in the world. 350 players make the NBA. Of those 350 players, 200 and something of them, more than that, probably 70% of them, so do the math, are black folks. 200, almost 300 of these players are black people. In the entire world of basketball players, we have the top ones right there. How did they get there? What's their excuse? Can you imagine if in every walk of life we put the level of focus as blacks that we put into the NBA, that we put into the NFL, that we put into Major League Baseball, that we put into track and field, that we put into being the next Beyonce or Jay-Z or whomever, what would we accomplish? Sky's the limit. We wouldn't be taught the Fortune 500. It wouldn't just be the handful of blacks like Marvin Ellison at Lowe's and the few other handful of blacks that are leading Fortune 100 companies. It would be dominated by blacks. We'd have 30 of the Fortune 100 CEOs would be black if we applied the same principles that we apply to sports and to entertainment and things like that. Are there not enough examples for you? Oprah, Bob Johnson, John Johnson, the person who founded Ebony and Jet. I mentioned Bob Johnson, the founder of BET, Tiger Woods, and others. Are there not enough examples? LeBron James, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Denzel, people who dominate. Are there not enough examples? When we put our minds to something, we can achieve whatever. But the problem is we're not putting our minds to the things that we should be putting our minds to. And there's a reason for that. Because there's somebody out there trying to trick you. Somebody out there going, oh man, well, you did descend from slaves. And them slaves were mistreated. And then you've been mistreated your whole life. Well, then how in the heck do we dominate the sports? If everybody's being mistreated, somebody explain to me how we're getting ahead in the NFL. How we're getting ahead disproportionately so in the NBA, in Major League Baseball, in track and field, in entertainment. If there's so many stumbling blocks and roadblocks, why is it that I could start naming blacks right now in movies and in entertainment and in sports, and I would say, well, check back with me in a couple of days? It's excuses. And what's funny is people like me, we sound the alarm bell going, hey, stop looking for excuses. You want to know who's stopping you? Well, I can see my reflection in this camera. I know who stops me. Whenever I'm stopped, I know who stops me. And it ain't no white man. It ain't no institutional racism. It's me. I'm the only person that stops me. So if you're smart, you will start analyzing things differently. You will start seeing the world through different eyes. The people that contact me to say, Kev, you changed my life, man. You made me think differently. I hope I have. I hope I have. Because everything that's going on right now in this social justice agenda is an insult to the blacks that came before us. Every part of it. They would have none of this. They would wave off the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion because they would say, you know what? I didn't have it. I was happy to be the first. Jackie Robinson was the happy first. Jesse Owens was happy to go represent this country and defeat Hitler's Aryan nation butt. He was happy to do it. Joe Louis was happy to knock out Max Schmeling. And this nation cheered while this black man knocked out a white dude. They cheered when Jesse Owens beat a white man crossing the finish line four times, whether it was a long jump or three different races. White people cheered for Jesse Owens and a host of other things and a host of other firsts and people who were doing stuff. So if white people aren't cheering for Barack Obama as an example, they're not cheering for him because he doesn't deserve their cheers. Doesn't make them racist. It's not about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You either do a good job or you don't. And guess what? If somebody differs and believes that Barack Obama was the greatest president ever, congratulations. If somebody doesn't believe that, that's okay too. But it is an excuse for failure. Blacks have no excuses for failures because we dominate what we choose to dominate. And I would say to anybody listening to this, if you want to be dominant, put your mind to it. Tell yourself you're going to dominate. We dominate marketing. More white kids listen to, quote, black music than they do white music. You think white kids are listening to Brahms? They're listening to classical? They're listening to salsa? Or, I don't know, the different music types, but they were listening to rap. They're listening to hip hop. They're listening to our music. You think they're couture? The white kids when they're not in suits and ties and going to some function, they're wearing Black people clothes, stuff designed by us. We're great at marketing, disproportionately so. We can sell thug life stuff. So we have no excuses. Whatever we put our minds to, we achieve, and we achieve in amazing fashion. So how are you going to let somebody dog you out, telling you, oh, well, you were a slave and this, that. Oh, man, please. That is a tribute to me. The slave blood runs through these veins. It's a tribute to me. It's a tribute to overcoming every single thing that you could throw at a human being to dehumanize them. And we overcame it, and we dominate. We dominate. And all we got to do is choose what we want to dominate. That's all I got to say today.